it can take up to 3 weeks for them to germinate, especially if the soil is really cold. If after 3 weeks they haven't germinated, then something went amiss and you'll want to replant. Hey guys, it's Brijette with Sandy Seed Company, and today we're shooting another one of our garden revisited videos where basically we're revisiting some old content, revamping it, answering questions on comments that you have left so that we can help our community continue to grow while I am busy on maternity leave. I'm gonna have a second baby boy late September, and so I'm obviously not gonna be shooting videos, I'm gonna be cuddling. So we're shooting these videos now so that you have the content you need so you can continue to grow in your garden even while I'm busy with baby number 2. So this video is specifically about sweet pea flowers, not sweet pea edible pods. When you plant them, everything you need to know. Let's check out the video and get the basics down, and then I will answer your questions. First thing I want to talk about is the difference between sweet peas, the flowers, and sweet peas, the edible pods. It's very confusing because they're called the same thing, but they are a totally different crop in the sense of sweet peas, the edible pods, like our mammoth melting, sugar daddy, sugar pea, any of those are plants that will grow to produce an edible pod that you will consume. Sweet peas, the flowers, on the other hand, do not. They actually grow just the same. They need to grow on a trellis, and they produce beautiful, amazing flowers that are very similar to the flowers of sweet pea edible pods, but they're not going to produce an edible pod, and you actually don't want to eat the flowers. I do not recommend that. They're not edible. And you grow them for cut flowers. They produce a really intense fragrance that is amazing. And depending on the variety, the fragrance can be different. And that's why you grow them. They'll fill your whole house with a beautiful, herbal kind of fruity smell that is just, it's incredible. You want to plant them in the fall. And I will say that is the number one thing that I see people do incorrectly. They wait until the spring to plant their sweet pea seeds, and then the plants don't get very big, and as soon as it gets hot and the summer rolls around, they putter out. Instead of doing that, you want to plant them in the fall. They'll grow very slowly. As you can see, these guys were planted around October, and they're not very big at all, and that's because the days are short and the sun is very low in the horizon. But what they are doing that we can't see is that they are growing really massive, healthy root systems. As soon as the days get longer and the days warm up, sun gets higher in the horizons, they are just going to take over this whole trellis here. It's really incredible. And they are going to bloom profusely. You will be able to smell these flowers all the way from the street, I guarantee. That's how amazing the fragrance is. Sweet pea seeds can be a little difficult to start because they're very hard. So you want to make sure that you soak them in water for a few hours before you plant them, because that will actually help to soften the seed coat and allow the seed to break and germinate. I do know that a lot of people will mention that you can nick the seeds, which is totally possible. We don't nick the seeds because you can end up damaging them, and we do sweet pea seed production, so the seeds that you buy in our packets are actually seed that we produce on our farm, and so I can't economically figure out a way to nick 1,000 seeds. So we successfully germinate them very easily just by soaking them. I don't recommend soaking them overnight because that can actually drown the seeds. It's too long for seeds to be in water without oxygen. Just a few hours as you're prepping your garden bed and drinking your coffee in the morning, that is enough time to soak the sweet peas before you plant them in the ground. You also want to make sure that the ground stays moist the whole time that they're germinating. So you can see here he's got irrigation heads next to the plants, and that's going to guarantee that they stay moist, and these irrigation heads are what allowed these seeds to germinate. You can hand water, but you got to do it often, and you have to be very disciplined to do it enough to guarantee that they germinate. If your seeds haven't germinated if it's been 2 weeks and you haven't seen any germinating in your garden bed where you planted the seeds, don't fret. It can take up to 3 weeks for them to germinate, especially if the soil is really cold. If after 3 weeks they haven't germinated, then something went amiss and you'll want to replant. As long as you know when to plant them and you can get them to germinate, they're pretty much set it and forget it. They're going to take over this whole trellis. They're going to give you more blooms than you possibly can ever enjoy. You're going to have to share them with neighbors and friends, and that's a good problem to have. So what kind of maintenance do these plants need? Well, once they fill up the trellis, you don't have to do a lot of pruning at all. In fact, on our farm, when we're doing seed production, we do 0 pruning. The only thing that we do is we go through and we harvest tons of blooms because, I mean, we can't help ourselves. It's so gorgeous. The blooms will actually happen on the plant and you will see a side stem. That is where florists like to cut the flower so you have a nice long stem to stick in a vase. Other than that, they require very little care as long as they're receiving ample moisture. If you mulch around your plants, you'll notice that they'll be happier because it's holding in the moisture. Let them fill up the whole trellis and then enjoy the blooms all spring and summer long. Okay, so the first question that we got, and we got a bunch of them, and I'm sorry, we got a lot of them, but I picked out some of the top ones that I think are gonna be the most helpful. This one is about fertilizing. How much do you fertilize? Do you fertilize every single month? This particular person was asking if you can fertilize them weekly. Well, yes and no. There's a caveat to it. Sweet pea flowers you plant in the fall in zone 9 and 10 because you want to plant them during a time of the year where the temperatures are getting cooler, the hours of sunlight are getting shorter, and you do that because you want the plants to really focus on their root growth. To have big, amazing displays of flowers, you need really strong roots. And to do that, you also need good fertilizer. So what I recommend that you do is when you actually prep your beds, you prep them with a good granular fertilizer, like our Darn Good fertilizer. Oh, how did that just happen? Boop, here it is. Really cool product, organic fertilizer, going to break down very slowly, organic. We source it in Arizona, which is about as local as you get. Love this stuff. You can actually incorporate it into your soil. This is going to basically fill your pantry for those plants to eat throughout the whole entire season. Now this is slow release. In addition to that, you can fertilize with a liquid fertilizer like our, oh, look how that happened, whoop, our fish and guano. Now, it's really important that anytime you're fertilizing with an organic product, preferably one that is as locally sourced as possible, with products that are as renewable as possible. I'm not going to get into that whole long thing because, it's very complicated. But what I love about fish and guano is it breaks down slowly and it's not going to burn your crops. So if you over fertilize, your crops are not likely to succumb to fertilizer burn. You can also dilute this very easily so that you can have a much lower concentration if you want to fertilize even more often. Liquid fertilizer is going to be available to your plant almost immediately, whereas a granular fertilizer, it's going to take time for it to break down. Now, I know I have really good soil in my garden and on our farm, so I don't fertilize that much. But if you're starting a new garden and you feel like your plants just really don't get enough energy from the soil, you can absolutely fertilize. Now every week, I'm not gonna lie, that's a lot. That's a lot of time, energy, and product. And it's probably not gonna need it that much, but you could get away with every month and you'll see your plants are gonna grow a lot quicker, especially as the hours of sunlight, so we get into December, it's the shortest part of the year. January rolls around. As the sunlight gets longer, those plants are going to take off. And that's where you're going to see really amazing displays of blooms come around April. Now, this is a perfect segue into the next question, which I just love it. Somebody asked, I'm actually going to read this question because it's fabulous. So, sweet peas in zone 9 and 10 are going to bloom around April, May, maybe a little bit earlier. This person said, let's say I planted them in mid-April. How can I keep them growing? Well, this is the exact thing that I try to get people to avoid. Usually when you see a crop already blooming, that means it's too late. You need to backtrack many, many months and do the work beforehand to get that crop growing. If you were to plant seeds in April in zone 9 and 10, maybe they sprout, especially if you're coastal in a cooler area. Maybe they sprout, maybe they get a little bit big. Guess what happens in June? They fry. They are a cool season flower. They are simply not going to be able to grow through June, July, and August really even September in the hot areas of zone 9 and 10. So this video was posted many years ago, and if you're watching this one, I would love to hear what happened with your sweet peas that you planted in April, but I would bet the farm that they probably didn't do very well. All right, so the last question, which is a fabulous one, is can you actually force sweet peas to flower sooner or earlier in the season? Maybe say late February, early March. You absolutely can. It is possible, and that is very specific to varieties that you plant. There are lots of flower farmers out there that need sweet pea flowers in February and March, earlier in the season, and they're planting very specific varieties are meant to bloom when the hours of sunlight are shorter during that time of the year. Now, I don't have them memorized, but I guarantee if you check out like Florette Farms channel or any other flower farming channel, they're probably gonna have suggestions for varieties that do actually bloom that early in the season. Now, just to clarify, those are variety dependent, meaning they are literally, they've been bred to do that exact thing. Now you can't take, like, let's say our heirloom mix and try to force them to bloom earlier in the season. It's simply not gonna work. Even if you plant them earlier here, maybe within a week or two, they'll bloom a little bit earlier come springtime, but it really is dependent on the hours of sunlight, and you can't change that. All right, so it's end of October in zone 9 and 10. Get out there and plant your sweet peas. That's the biggest tip that I have for you. Don't wait too late in the year. Definitely don't wait till April. Too late. And we have tons of different varieties that you can check out. These are all heirloom varieties that are going to do really well in our warm fall and winter climates here in zone 9 and 10. But as I mentioned in the video, I would love to hear from you. What are some sweet pea varieties that you absolutely love, that you would love to see us carry? Comment on this video, like and subscribe to the channel so that we can learn from you, we can learn from each other, and we can continue to grow together.